people know that I just went live. Hey, see Liberal Cluck's backstage, so thanks for coming in, buddy. Let me just put up a few posts so people know that we're getting started live. Hey, everybody, what's going on? Oh, wow. Nice to see some people in chat already. Thanks for joining. Put it up in Discord. Oh, sorry, sorry, Liberal Click. I just put that in the wrong channel, so you can ignore that. My bad. My bad, buddy. My bad. Okay. All right. So people are starting to trickle in. Good to see everybody. Good to see everybody. Let me get my lighting fixed because it's kind of dark in here. That's better. Okay. So lighting's a little better. Okay, and let me, Liberal Cluck, I'm going to bring you up on stage. So here you go. Welcome. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing alright. I gotta be a fucking boomer. I cannot figure out how to change titles on any of the websites. Not into it.
Which ones are you trying to change it on?
Twitch. I'm streaming on Twitch again because I don't want Hassan to be the lefty.
You know, I never got going on Twitch at all. I got zero traction whenever I posted stuff there, and
Yeah.
I just kind of stopped. So at this point, it's kind of like a YouTube only thing. Maybe I should
Gotcha.
start again. I don't know.
Yeah, on a debate.
That would be I would obviously do that. I would be delighted to do that. I think the odds of that happening are in the hell freezes over territory, but um
Dude,
I
I burned my one. So the way I see it is that if you're against us, get one post on his subreddit. And I burned it last year.
yeah. I don't know. I feel like there's you know how these things go. There's kind of like this risk reward that people do where you're talking about like debates and there's kind of like the topic and the interest and how expert people feel in it, and then there's also just like the clout of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't think Hassan's not debating me. He has nothing to gain and everything to lose, so that would never, I don't think that would happen in a million years.
Yeah. Yeah. The only reason I started streaming was because I wanted to debate people. It's not a clout thing or anything like that. I could give two shit.
Oh yeah. No, I'm not trying to ascribe that to you. I'm more just saying that when you reach a certain
Level.
size,
Yeah.
yeah, like I think that starts mattering a little bit differently. Like at like how about this? It's like when I was at Word War Debate and we were doing like the after party and Anna Kasparian was there. She was there with her agent because like her level of career and notoriety that comes from social media is very different,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if, like if you're rolling with your agent, you know that your level of clout is somewhat different than somebody who's like live streaming to a small and wonderful, I love you guys, wonderful audience, but it's just a very different thing.
Yeah, for sure. Well,
Yeah.
I do appreciate you taking me up on my offer. It's really hard for somebody who doesn't really have an audience to find people willing to debate. I've always got to do like debate panels and shit to get any debates, and I kind of hate panels because there's too much distraction.
Yeah, I got to admit, I'm coming around to the same thing, and I want to make sure to do a formal introduction in a second. But just to pick up the thread there, I'm coming to the same conclusion. Like I still do them, but they're normally such shit shows, and it's very hard to get anywhere. And also, it's just very hard to actually like articulate a thought because
Yeah.
when you get interrupted constantly. So
Yeah.
I'm a little bit. I'm a little stocked down on panels myself. Sorry about that. I'm a little under the weather, so if I say anything incoherent, hope you forgive me. But
Oh, that's fine.
this is Liberal Cluck. Maybe you can let the audience know who you are and what you do. I know we cross paths on a few, I think one or two panels by now. But let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, I'm Liberal Cluck. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube and Kick. I stopped streaming to Kick and started streaming to Twitch because I don't want Hassan to be the lefty streamer on Twitch. And Restream only allows you to stream to platforms at once for the free tier. So that's you can find me on Discord if you have any disagreements. Like I told Ryan, I like debating. I have a Discord. You have any disagreements, hit me up. I'm also in the Wix channel, so you can find me there if you need to find my name to like DM me or something. Um, and the only reason I started streaming was because I found that if I tell people that I got to stream, there's a certain type of person that's more willing to talk to you. Uh, if you're just a random on Reddit.
I think that's true. And also, I don't know, man. There's something about like the way that back and forths go on X and Reddit. Um, I don't know. It's like the turn-based aspect of it or something. Like the conversations very rarely go well. Let me put it
Yeah,
that way. If you put out tremendous good faith, you'll have like one good conversation on X every 10 days or something.
yeah,
But like you have to eat so much shit for that to happen.
yeah.
And it really takes some real effort. But yeah, you reached out and you said you a little nebulous. I wasn't exactly sure what aspect of it, but it seems you wanted to talk about ICE. I assume that's the Renee Good, Alex Preddy, Minnesota stuff. But it could be a broader than that. So what's on your mind?
Yeah, let's talk about immigration. I guess I kind of want to know what we'll start with like what is your take on like immigration? What is your
In
broad strokes?
in general,
Yeah, in general.
I think that we have done a bad job norming immigration for the thing that we should be norming it for, which is that if you take seriously the idea that America is a propositional nation, which I do, then you should be ensuring that people who are immigrating are doing so because they want to continue that proposition, that they buy in. Because really, what you're really saying there is you're saying America's a philosophy. And if you need to make sure that when you're bringing people in, that they're on board with that. Because we don't do that, and we do a number of other things, we've run into a certain amount of predictable problems, but I don't have a particularly hard stance like on immigration. I think it's a tool for the country. Sometimes you want more of it, sometimes you want less of it. Sometimes you want to restrict it in certain ways, sometimes you want to open it up in other ways. Like I don't have like an absolutist position on immigration.
What is the proposition?
To create a government to secure our natural rights, which is the Declaration of Independence, that life, liberty, and support and pursuit of happiness. That is the purpose of the government, is to secure the natural rights of the people.
So in your mind, the government isn't even supposed to be doing things like welfare.
I prefer they didn't. People, we voted on that. I would prefer that stuff like that be done if it's going to be done at all on the state level. But I mean, that's not immigration, of course. That's a separate topic. It's
It is.
related. It's related in that the more the more of a welfare state you create, the less you can the less unrestricted immigration makes sense. There's a little bit of a relationship there, but it's not like exactly perfectly one to one.
The only reason I brought it up was because I'm kind of trying to gauge an idea of where your like values lie. And like what your positionings are. So like you said the proposition is that the government only protect our rights. I would assume you mostly I think it's positive rights, like the rights from things, like the rights
Well,
from.
natural law or natural rights is a moral philosophy. So
Okay.
it's the idea that there are certain human universals, let's call them like the big four would be life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and property rights. And that the government is there primarily to secure these rights, but those rights are sometimes in tension with each other. Like, if you have a lot of liberty, that might lessen your security because if you have a lot of freedom, people might use it badly, right? If you have a lot of safety to protect your life, you might have less liberty. So these things don't necessarily go one to one, and it can be complicated to balance them. But in general, what our founders believed is that our government should be there to maximize these things and avoid infringing them to the extent they can. And our government currently infringes on them quite a good deal and could do quite a lot better than it currently does. But as relates to immigration, the concern there is that you kind of need to, if you want people who are going to function within the kind of ordered liberty that America was founded on, they need to buy in to the same broad cultural philosophical framework, because if they don't, you're going to run into all kinds of problems. Like, just to give you this is a hypothetical extreme example, but if we snapped our fingers tomorrow and we imported 200 million people who prefer Sharia law, right, and gave them the right to vote, well, then the Constitution would be amended and we'd have Sharia law in short order. There's nothing in our Constitution that can protect us from people with different values who are voting. So, in order to make the system work, you can't rely on the legal side of it. You have to rely on the moral side of it. You have to be able to, preach an American philosophy and make sure that that's something that is valued in the populace.
Yeah. And my view on immigration is I think that America is a big, wonderful, and very wealthy country.
Mhm.
And I think that we should be migrating as many people as the country can really handle, from all over the world, whether it be professionals from India or the needy from South America. Um, I think that we could probably handle a lot more than what we take in. I think we can handle more than what was coming in under Biden. Um, I might be empirically wrong about that. It could be the case that if we were to get much more than what was coming in under Biden, the standard of living for most of Americans would greatly diminish. But I don't think I am empirically wrong on that. Um, so I think that you and I kind of have like different viewpoints of what the government should be doing. Which is also why I brought up the welfare thing, because like I do believe that the government should be doing like SNAP, and like seeing those differences helps navigate the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I don't even think standard of living or economics is in like the first tier of my priorities with immigration. I think that, particularly sensible immigration policies tend to have economic benefits. Less sensible policies have less benefits, but that's kind of goes with anything. I think that primarily my concern is more around this kind of like cultural philosophical issue, um, which is, just to state it plainly, um, I am all for. I have no concern with allowing immigration and having immigration of people who want to be American and want to contribute. I'm not. That's not something that bothers me in the least bit, and I have never. I don't know. Like, I'm just not. I don't know. My entire adult life, I have not. I've never lived in like an all white neighborhood. Like, this is just not a thing that has been my life. So these are not. Those are not my concerns. Um, and though they are for some people, I think that, for me, it's more. I think we've kind of lost track of what we're doing. Right. Like, we've pushed this idea of multiculturalism, which is the opposite of assimilation. And, when these are ideas that make immigration harder. Multiculturalism makes functioning immigration harder. A robust welfare state makes functioning immigration harder. So these things are going to make immigration less successful because they run the opposite direction.
Okay, well, explain to me why something like multiculturalism would make immigration harder.
Because we have a system that relies on our citizens believing more or less this some version of the same philosophical system. We don't have a way to prevent people from voting for terrible things if they once they they've been born here, their kids are born here, they have the vote. And one thing that leaves us vulnerable to, and we've seen this happen, this is just one example, but I've seen this happen in many places, is insular communities which do not assimilate and then vote on mass for their own interests rather than the broader society's interests, or even their community's interest in their locality. So, like in New York, we see this a lot with Hasidic Jewish communities, for example, where there's been a substantial dialogue about the fact that the voting bloc is so powerful that there's a huge amount of resources in New York City that are dedicated to the Hasidic Jewish community so that they can have their own buses, their own schools, their own education system, and preserve their insular community. But query what benefit that gives to the broader community. The It's one thing when that already exists within the citizenry. It's another thing to import it on purpose, right? And that's part of the problem we're seeing with, like, for example, the Somali refugee programs, is that they're these tight knit insular communities that are voting in that way. And the question is like, well, why would we do that on purpose? Well, it seems like that doesn't seem helpful.
How are the Somali people voting?
Have you seen Minnesota politics?
Um, not probably not same information.
Well, the thing about, like, in Minnesota now, for example, like, there are different, subgroups within the Somali community. And a big thing about the way to get votes and to, get politics done there is to appeal to each insular subgroup. And this is not like I'm not at all trying to say that people are doing. I'm really not trying to be derogatory in any way. I'm just pointing out that when you have immigrants coming to America, they are typically going to form insular subgroups because it's kind of like their place in their community and where they feel comfortable. And I think you saw this happen with the Italians, you saw this happen with the Irish, right? But then there needs to be the pressure to assimilate, right? And the problem with multiculturalism is multiculturalism reduces the pressure to assimilate. So it makes it like, in fact, it's viewed as, on multiculturalism, somewhat virtuous not to have assimilation, because we would prefer to have some kind of, like, vibrancy and difference between the different groups within the country, as opposed to, assimilation, which is, to me, is the engine that makes immigration work.
Um, okay, but how are they voting? That's so problematic.
Sorry, you're asking for, like, examples
Yeah, yeah,
of.
like what policies are they voting for that's like so outside of the American culture that it's a problem?
Well, I mean, so the famous example now, and I actually, I don't know. You could say whether this is a problem or not. But the really funny. This is not in Minnesota. This is in Michigan. But there was a really funny example where there was a bunch of kind of very well intentioned, very white, very liberal, very LGBTQ activists who were concerned that there was underrepresentation of local Muslims in their town, because the town was very Muslim and they were not represented on city council. So they did all these campaigns in order to increase Muslim representation on the city council board.
Hmm.
And eventually they were successful. And the city council board became majority Muslim. But these are strict religious Muslims. So the first thing they did was ban all the LGBTQ flags, all the pride activities, all the stuff that the people who had been supporting them to get these positions wanted, was immediately voted out, because different cultural subsets have different values, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, something like that though. That there's like a solution to that, and that would probably be found in the Constitution. I would imagine that any um, any policy made to ban gay flags would probably get struck down. Correct?
No,
No.
no.
Like, what do you mean they banned? Like, I can't have a flag on my yard
You
of a
could,
rainbow?
but they won't fly them in City Hall. They're not going to have pride parades. The town's not going to do
Oh,
it
oh,
because
oh, oh, oh,
because
oh. Okay.
they now control the town's resources.
Okay. I thought you meant like you couldn't have it on your yard, like, or
No, 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 nothing that severe. Nothing that severe.
gotcha. Oh, well, I mean, okay. If one town wants to get rid of the rainbow flag and another wants to get
Mhm.
rid of the Confederate flag, I don't see any problems with that.
Okay. I so what's the question then becomes like, are you infinitely tolerant of that, like of those regional
No,
differences?
absolutely not. Like there's definitely limits. Like in some of these cultures, they literally stone gay people, is my understanding, and I wouldn't be tolerant of that. Obviously, the way they treat women, I don't like, and I wouldn't tolerate any type of physical abuse. Anything that's like, but we have laws that protect us from things, so
Well,
not that worried about it.
hold your horses for a second. We have laws, correct?
Yeah.
But laws can be changed.
Well, they could be. I think that getting a law changed to allowing zoning of gay people is a whole hell of a lot
That
bigger
one
task.
that one would be a tough one.
Yeah,
What about female circumcision?
like allowing female circumcision.
Yeah, we allow male circumcision
Yeah. Do you have any examples of that happening?
in America.
Yeah. Like where
I
it's happening and legal.
No, no, no. It's not legal in America.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is, if you if you have people who have very different values, and I'm just doing a thought experiment now,
Yeah.
if you bring people in who have very, very different values and they can vote for what the laws are, if you at critical mass, they can change what the laws are,
Sure.
right?
I
So I don't think the Constitution bars female circumcision. Like I don't think there's I don't think there's anything in the Bill of Rights about that. So if a state were to change its mind on that policy, I think that you could make that legal.
maybe. I think it would be a tall order to make something like that legal.
Why?
Um, because it like the reason why female circumcision is illegal is because how mutilating it is for the woman
Yeah,
is my understanding. I mean, I don't really know much about female, to be honest with you.
it's pretty horrific from all told.
Yeah,
But on the flip side, this is not like a cultural universal. There are plenty of cultures that have a lot of female circumcision.
I'm not sure
Not our
that.
culture, but there's plenty that do.
Yeah, I just don't think that there's going to be enough of people from those cultures actually come into America that's going to cause female circumcision. They would be able to override an entire state and cause female circumcision, especially in like high population. Maybe they could do it in Alaska or Vermont. But
Okay.
I don't see that. That's not a concern for me. If it started becoming a problem, then yeah, I would probably get my
But
beliefs on that.
here's the problem. When it starts becoming a problem, it's already too late. Let me put it this way. If your metric for concern is it's already happened,
Yeah.
you're kind of shit out of luck because if it's already happened, then there's a voting block with sufficient power that you're not able you can have whatever concerns you want. That's the law now.
Yeah, I don't think it's something like that. I think there would be a lot of warning signs before like we got up to female circumcision.
Okay.
I that would be my guess. Um, and it would happen. It's like there would be one state that had female circumcision. So like the idea that we could get critical mass in multiple states before we were to like, okay, hold on a second, actually be a problem. And what
Wait,
tends to
so
happen with these,
if it only happened in one state, that would be okay?
well, it would be a good warning sign. I think it would be a warning sign good enough for us to realize that something needs to change before it actually becomes a countrywide problem.
That I feel like that's a little late to call it a warning sign.
I don't think
Just
so. One state, like one of the cool things about America is we have 50, and we can
okay.
use that fact to
So
figure
how
out.
many girls should get female circumcised before it's sufficiently concerning.
I we're talking about policies. We're
I'm
not
talking
talking about
about
like individual. Okay,
I'm talking
so
about
that would be like me asking how many women need to bleed out in a doctor's office because they couldn't get abortions before we legalize abortions. It's not a I don't think that that question
well,
is very
you just said I think it's fair because you just said that if if one or two states legalize for female circumcision, that would kind of be like a good warning sign, and then
and we
maybe
would
we
be
do
able to
something about it
reverse it.
then. But
Yes.
you not something worth preventing in and of itself, but like kind of just a data point.
Well, for one, we don't even know that this is a thing that would happen in any state. So yes, there is a risk there. I can give you that there is a possibility that one day we would migrate so many people from a specific country that something bad like that could happen. But I do think that like the benefits of immigration and
Mm.
multiculturalism outweigh risks that happen. For
What about marrying your first cousin?
what about it?
Well, it's illegal in most states. I haven't done a 50-state survey, but I'm confident it's illegal.
Okay.
Um, okay. There are many cultures that prefer marrying first cousins, and it's actually quite legal.
Okay.
So if would you have an issue if there was a shift in the culture and now we were marrying there was a subset of people marrying their first cousin?
Um, Not as much as I would if there was female circumcision happening.
Okay. Now these are not I'm picking these examples because they're not particularly hypothetical.
Yeah,
Right?
I understand, but
do you
like,
know what
is there a state where there's even a
do you know what the
proposal for
female
this?
circumcision rate? Well, the state is England because as the Muslim population's gone up, they've they've been now pushing, well, not pushing, but they've been changing their stance on first cousin marriage. But do you know what this female circumcision rate is in Somalia?
Um, I'm guessing you're asking me. I
It's 99%.
Yeah. So
It's a cultural universal.
yeah, so when we're talking about people coming to Somalia, starting families, having kids, wouldn't it be better for those women, the girls that are born to these families, to be born in America, a place where these
Well, my point is I'm less concerned with that and more concerned with if we're going to bring in people that have really different cultural values, that we should be attempting to assimilate them rather than celebrating multiculturalism because it actually does make a difference, right? Like the difference between saying like, oh, well, we're bringing in people and they have different cultural values, but we expect that they will become a flavor of American rather than saying, oh, well, whatever culture you have, we can't judge that. My concern is that the view I've seen on at least certainly the modern left is that you can't judge cultures. Like all cultures are equally valid. There's no better or worse culture. There's no way to do that. Like it's all culturally relative. So there's no way to make any of those judgments. And that's why assimilation would be inappropriate. And I think that's nonsense. And it's a particularly dangerous school of nonsense.
So I don't know, like I don't know who on the left you've been talking to, and I don't doubt that there are people out there that have that belief. But like my understanding is the argument on the left, and this is the argument that I have, is that people do tend to assimilate, especially in second and third generations.
Okay. So if that's the case, why would there be any concern with attempting to focus on assimilation in our immigration policies, which is what I was suggesting?
Well, it depends on what you're focusing on because there's probably a lot of things about other cultures that are pretty benign or even beneficial that we can probably allow into the country, without having to worry about these things being a big problem. And this
idea
idea that we're going to
allow
allow
so
so
many
many people that we're
at even
even
at
at
risk
risk
of
of
allowing
allowing
so
so
many
many people into the country that that something
like
like
female
female circumcision or even first cousin marriages
is
is
gonna
going to be a thing in America in like the near horizon is
also
also
not
not
a
a
thing
thing
that
that
I'm
I'm
buying
buying
into.
into.
I
I
also
also looked up the whole England thing.
apparently
Apparently,
they're
they're
trying
trying
to,
to ban first cousin marriages right now in England.
and
And
it's
it's
been
been
allowed
allowed
since
since the 16th century. So it's not
nothing
like the case that a bunch of Muslims
have
have
gone
gone
into
into England and
now
now
they're
they're
trying
trying
to
to
allow
allow first cousin marriages, which is what you're saying would happen in the United States.
But in the Muslim faith, marrying your first cousin is acceptable,
Okay.
right? In the Christian faith, it's not. Because of that, our laws ended up being dramatically different on cousin marriage, right? So, and this is something that has a dramatic impact on the population over time because it turns out first cousin marriage is a real bad idea. It has a lot of very serious downsides.
Does?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
no,
no,
I'm
I'm
agreeing.
agreeing.
Yes,
Yes,
it
it
does.
does.
Yeah, yeah,
No,
okay.
No,
that
that
wasn't
wasn't
a
a
question.
question. That I was
Yeah,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah. So, the point is that, as we tailor our immigration policy, what we should be doing is tailoring it such that we are bringing people in who want to be American and want to do American things and want to be part of our culture. I'm not saying that they don't bring their vibrancy with them, but that they want to do what we're doing. And I don't know that there's like universal compatibilism in that way. Like I have, for example, like I have very serious concerns about the compatibility of Sharia law with US values. I don't think they're compatible. I could be wrong, but they don't strike me as particularly compatible. So I think we should be thinking about those things. And I don't understand why we wouldn't. Like, why wouldn't we prefer to have immigration from people who want to assimilate and want to become American as to opposed to people who don't want to do
How do
those
you
things?
even
Measure
measure
that.
that? When
When somebody
somebody comes
comes,
to your border,
how
how
do
do
you
you measure their willingness to assimilate?
I mean, I think you could ask questions, you could do surveys, you could do it based you could not do things like mass refugee programs where you're not even doing the basic vetting programs. You could not let people across the border without having to do I mean, we're not even doing and the problem with the Biden years is that we weren't even doing our typical immigration things, let alone kind of the enhanced immigration stuff that I would be that I would be talking about. So, in the past, you know, like let's say the Biden years plus the TPS program for Somalia has been ongoing for that's been since the 90s. We've had a variety of programs where we don't do any norming at all. So anything would be better, right?
So what are these questions?
I mean, we
what
have
what
What
are
are
our
our
expectations?
expectations of these
yeah, like
to be American?
I think, like, for example, like if when we ask visas, we would ask like, do you support the Communist Party? Is like a question that we ask often. If people, or at least we did historically, I don't know if we still do, but we at one point did. If people wanted to become here on a visa because communism was and is incompatible with American values, I think we should ask questions like that. Like, are you going to raise your children with American values? Are you going to, attempt to be part of the communities that you join? You can ask basic civics questions. There's all kinds of stuff you could do. You could also check in. You could have a variety of systems that would do some of this. I don't know that I can design them off the top of my head right now, but my point is more that we're doing none of it. We're doing nothing. So if we're doing nothing, then it's pretty easy to improve on that. While you think about that, just one second. World Radio 332, thanks for the 10, buddy. There's a limit a country has where the influx of immigrants no longer acclimate. If you don't want third world politics in your country, we should stay below that threshold. Your thoughts? Yeah, I think that's kind of the trick, right? Is that what you want to avoid is long-term balkanization, where you have insular groups that stay insular for the long term. What you want to encourage is the type of immigration that we've seen historically, I think, in large swaths of the population now, where whatever their ethnic background is, they're not necessarily like one block. There's wide variety of opinions, and there's a whole different ways to be America, no matter where you came from. Be American, sorry, no matter where you came from originally. So I think that's kind of what we're trying to encourage. I don't know that I right now we're not doing anything at all to norm this. So I think something should be done. Like, sorry, I was monologuing. Go ahead.
I think that the questions, I like you support communism. I don't know how that helps. What was the other one? Did you ask?
Well,
So it's basic civics
sure,
question.
sure it does. Why should we import a bunch of communists?
I don't think that we were at risk of importing a bunch of communists.
No, but we don't have to be at risk of importing a bunch of communists. I'm saying, like, if we could weed out communists who want to come into the country, and we're just like, well, it turns out you're communists. We don't really want communists, so no. Why wouldn't we do that?
I don't understand like why that's a point where we would even like so for one, I'm not a communist. I am a
Mm,
capitalist. Just go ahead and
yeah,
get that out of the way. But I don't understand why that would be a question. It's like why is this person being a communist even if he had like other great values to him? Maybe he's a hard worker, maybe he's got a skill that we need. Maybe he's just willing to work jobs that Americans aren't willing to work. Why would him being a communist qualify him?
because communism is evil.
Yeah,
No, it's not. It's not more complicated than that.
that's okay. I don't even.
Like, for example, if there's a guy who came and he said, "You know what? I'm a real hard worker. I love coding. I'm
Mhm.
great coding. I'm going to pay taxes, but the thing I really love more than any of that is Satan. And I'm not going to break any laws. Like, I'm not going to break any laws while I'm here. I'm not going to do that. But what I am going to try to do is I'm going to try to gather people over time who think the way I think. And I'm going to create a voting block of Satanists. And of hopefully, I eventually get the power that I can start passing laws based on our beliefs.
Yeah,
I,
I just
like,
I wouldn't care if
would,
that guy
would,
came
would,
in.
you wouldn't care if that guy came
No,
in?
absolutely not.
What the fuck?
Well, for
Okay.
one of our American values is freedom of religion. So, like, why would we use religion? Like the entire country was started from people who was running from religion persecution. Am I wrong about this?
You're not wrong, but I think that the idea that you wouldn't see a problem with that scenario
No,
is
if there was a
really no,
Satanist,
it's a great example. This is why I feel like the left has got a lot of people feel like the left has just lost their mind on some of this stuff because, like, that's obviously a problem. That's obvious.
Satanist, Satanism,
Okay,
you,
he's not a Satanist because maybe that doesn't offend you enough. He's a slaver. He doesn't want
huh?
to break any laws. He does not want to break any laws. He will
Isn't
not do.
slavery a law?
Yeah, but his goal is not to break the law.
He wants to
His
change the
goal is
law.
to create a voting block that will amend the Constitution so that he can then
Yeah,
start
I'm
putting
also
people in
I'm also
slavery again.
not I'm also not worried about that. And you know why? Because I do believe that the American people have
So
a strong enough moral backbone to be able to just that kind of that kind of thing.
so to
Uh
be clear, he's at the border. They're like, hey, so why are you coming to America? And he describes his long-term vision of creating a voting block. Maybe not tomorrow, but maybe it's going to take 50 years. But someday he'll be able to enact his dream of slavery.
if
And
that is,
you're
wait, hold on.
and
So if that
you
is the
don't think that's a
reason,
reason
if
to
that
turn
is
him
the
away?
sole, if that is the sole reason he's coming to America, then I would say probably not. But
Oh
if he
no,
wants to come to,
he's also a hard worker.
yeah, if he wants to come to
He's
America
also a
and
hard
work,
worker.
but also on the side try to get people to support slavery, I wouldn't give a shit about that because I don't think it's a risk. It's just not a risk. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
thing we're bringing back in America anytime soon. So I'm
So,
not
so,
worried about
so,
it.
so what you're saying is there is no culture or set of ideas that is so bad that you would think that's not a good idea. We
Yeah,
shouldn't import that.
because it's well,
I mean,
To be
I'm
clear, if
trying to
somebody
invent
has
one,
a
and I
set of
can't.
ideas, then I would be worried about him breaking laws. But if we could 100% know that he's not going to break any laws, then no, I'm not worried about it because I think the worse the idea, the less likely they're going to get it passed.
Okay, I'm trying. This is really interesting to me that you don't find this problematic. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it the other way. Let's um let's flip the table. Right? It's
Uh-huh.
now the Republicans who want mass immigration.
Uh-huh.
They've changed their mind, and here's why they've changed their mind.
Because a lot of migrants are conservative and
They,
going to
yeah,
vote Republican. I wouldn't care.
they're like, you know what we need to do? We need to import people from based Catholic countries. And when they get here, we're going to get them citizenship. We're going to get citizenship for their kids. And in 20, 30 years, we're going to have enough of a population where we can ban marriage, we can ban gay marriage coast to coast, we can ban abortion coast to coast, and we can roll back the women's suffrage so women don't vote anymore. And the way we're going to do that is by importing based Catholic people
Yeah.
from South American countries and Central American countries. That's our plan. And let's say they were totally open about that, and that was what they were doing. Would you then have a problem based on the ideology of the people being allowed in?
As long as they're not restricting other people from coming in, then I wouldn't care.
Okay. Well, apparently there's yeah, I can keep testing this, but apparently there is no ideology
Well,
that you would find
to be
concerning.
clear, I think that there are probably ideologies out there to where if they were to have it, I would just assume they're going to commit a crime or do something to harm other people, something to harm Americans, and I wouldn't let them. Right? So like if the person comes in and he is like a staunch like racist and he you have reason to believe that he's going to hurt white people when he gets here because he just hates white people so much, then like yeah, he probably not doesn't belong here because he's probably going to hurt white people.
Why are you more concerned with the laws being broken than the laws being changed?
Because I think that the American people, the people that are already here, have have a set of morals that are not going to be able to be wavered by a bunch of migrants coming here, and we're gonna we outnumber them. Like even within a certain subset of migrants that we get coming in, most of them aren't worried about coming here for political change. They're worried about coming here to work and take care of their families. So like within that subset of people that do actually get politically involved, which is it probably I would guess is a relatively small number of them. The amount of them that aren't currently assimilating in a way to where they are actually still worried about voting for these problematic things are even smaller. So you get to these very small numbers of people that would actually vote for these problematic things. Then you gotta have people running for these problematic things in the first place. Get through primaries. The system there to like it's just not a risk that's a consideration for.
Yeah, I think it should be. I think that if you like, there's a town near me where, for example, like I'm just using examples near me because I know them, right? I'm sure there's other examples I could give, but these are the ones I'm familiar with. Where and this is not an immigrant thing, by the way. This is just about insular populations. The Hasidic population was growing and was getting increasingly powerful within the township and was directing an increasingly large amount of resources to the town and eventually grew to a sufficient size where they voted to split the land and they just took part of the what had been the town previously and formed their own town, right? So now they have their own town where they have total control of the local government and they can have it be a Hasidic community. And that might not concern you, and it's not immigration based because they're citizens and they weren't immigrants. But the reason I bring it up is that when you have super insular populations, like that absolutely can happen and probably will happen if if you don't have assimilation. Now, the Hasidic population never assimilates because they have a set of beliefs that are very, very resistant to assimilation because their religious structure is such that assimilation is basically a non-starter. But I don't know that I feel. I think there's lots of religious structures that work that way, that insulate groups from assimilation. In fact, that's one of the main, as I understand it, one of the main points of female circumcision is that it keeps the society insular. It prevents women from dating or marrying outside of the community. It creates control over children and reproduction, and it prevents cultural drift. So yeah, I think that it would be a little naive to think that you're going to have insular communities within the country with particular insular values, and that they're not going to form groups to vote in their self-interest, even in, for example, local elections where the numbers don't need to be that high.
So the local elections possibly, but if there's a problem with a local community, state can take care of that. People split themselves into town, but if you found out that there were like female mutilation happening at massive levels in the town, this do something about that. At least hopefully it.
I they don't. I mean, it doesn't go that well, to be honest with you. It doesn't go that well because, like, to your point. Now, this is an example of law breaking, not law changing, but just to you know, um, what you'll see, and I don't have a statistic for this, but I'm just going to assert it confidently because I think that it would be very it would be I'd be very surprised if it were not true. Is that, for example, with female circumcision, like, they're not going to hospitals and seeking out American doctors to perform female circumcisions. They have people within the community who do the task, just like Moyles do it within the Jewish community, right? There's a person who's trained within the community to do that, and they're doing it themselves, not through the medical sector. And these are insular communities where there's going to be massive underreporting, right? Like, again, you see this with most insular communities where there's there if there are issues with sexual abuse, if there's issues with child rearing, if there are issues with physical violence, spousal domestic violence, et cetera, you're not going to get reporting because these communities don't reach out, they reach within to manage their affairs.
Yeah, but I would prefer that like the girls that have that issue are here because at least there's a chance that they will be protected in some way. I'm not saying it happens often. I'm not like, but there is a chance here. Whereas if they're there, then there's zero chance.
But why? That's an interesting point you just made. So, why is your focus on? And I think this. Let me just ask the question without hiding the ball, just to make sure. It sounded like your focus there was on what is the benefit to the immigrant.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of where I where I draw my immigration policy ideas are from like what can America do to help others?
Why would that be your focus?
Because I am a person that helps others, and I think that people and nations can help others, should help others.
Well, I
I
mean,
just think it makes a better world.
do you like donate at a soup kitchen?
No, I work as a counselor for a
Okay,
prison,
okay,
and I get a lot of fulfillment from the job.
no, that makes sense to me. I'm a former teacher. Like, I get it. I find one of the aspects of the modern left that I find most troubling is this, and I'm going to go a little philosophy bro, but it's kind of a Kantian notion that you measure your altruism by how little you get out of it, right? You want it to be pure altruism, like you're helping people you don't know, and you're helping people that have no connection to you, and that's pure and good. Because oftentimes, you know, there'll be, like, I remember when I was in undergrad, there was a project that was being cycled up, and it was like, let's go to Guatemala and build houses, right? And I was like, I I work, and I was, like I said, I was into teaching, especially back then. So I was doing like educational support in Brooklyn. And I was like, I work in a neighborhood, and I volunteer, I should say, in a neighborhood in Brooklyn where I have to walk by a methadone clinic and two crack houses, the trash isn't picked up, and people are living in projects, and there's gunfights on the streets every week. So why the fuck are we building houses in Guatemala? Like I went to school in New York. There are people in New York who you we could be helping. Why on earth are we focusing our resources on this other thing? And I don't quite understand the impulse. Why would that be the focus?
So
So for me,
I
I
think,
think that we could do both.
and
And
especially
especially
when
when
we
we
talk
talk
about
about
immigration,
immigration,
it's
it's
not
not
like
like
we
we
get
get
an
an
immigrant
immigrant in
in
and they are just like
a
a
complete
complete drain on
society,
society. I'm sure there's you full of them.
refugee.
Refugees are living on welfare. Probably that exists,
But
but
most
most
of
of
them,
them come and contribute to society.
society,
They work, they pay taxes, they
do
do
all
all
those
those
things.
things.
So
So
not
not
only
only
are
are
we
we
helping
helping
the
the
migrant
migrant
by
by
allowing
allowing
them
them
to
to come
our
into our
country
country
and
and
work,
work, they're living a
higher
higher
standard.
standard than they would where they're from.
The
The
people
people that that
their
their
children
children
protected
protected
by
by
our
our
law.
laws,
Hopefully,
hopefully.
at
At
least
least
there's a
there's a
chance
chance
here
here that they're
protected
protected
by
by
our
our
law.
laws, but
They're
they're
also
also like contributing.
so
And
I
I
think
think
we
we
could
could do both.
I
I
think
think
that
that the homeless people that you
saw
saw
are
are
without
without
home.
homes because of mostly,
Well,
well,
there's a
there's a
little
little bit of an individual choice,
and
individual responsibility thing there, but
to
to
the
the extent that that
this
society isn't doing
what
what
they
they
could,
could,
everything
everything
they
they
could
could
for
for
that
that
person.
person, it's the
Lack
lack
of
of political will.
Okay, so this is where I think the disconnect is, and it's interesting. You you're focused almost entirely on whether or not immigrants would be a net benefit economically. And is it? And please don't. If I'm wrong, please correct me.
Okay,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah,
So
so
let
let
me
me
interrupt you
interrupt you
You
then.
seem
then.
to have no concern at all about whatever cultural impact they would have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
because like
I've
I've
mentioned
mentioned this
before.
before.
I
I
think
think
that
that the America's cultural
backbone
backbone
it
is
strong
strong
enough
enough
to
to resist
any
any
problem.
problem,
Vast
vast
majority
majority of problems
that
that
could
could
come
come
out
out
of
of
problematic
problematic
aspects
aspects
of
of
other.
other cultures.
I
I
also
also
think
think
that
that
America's
America's
culture
culture is
is contagious
contagious
in
in
that,
that,
like
like, when people come here, they see our culture,
like
like
our
our
culture,
culture,
and
and
they
they
want
want
to.
to, for the most part. And the ones that don't, usually
Their
their
children
children
do.
do, their children's children.
What in your mind is American culture?
Well,
Well,
I
I
asked
asked
you.
you the same thing.
American
American
culture
culture
Yeah.
is huge.
there are
There is
so
so
many
many
aspects.
aspects to American culture.
I
I
do
do
think
think freedom of religion, and it's just
like
like
a
a
lot of
lot
the
of the freedoms that we enjoy as a huge part of America.
I
I
think
think
that
that
individual
individual
rights
rights
to
to
bodily
bodily autonomy is a good part of American culture. That so things like mutilation. Honestly, I think that for men, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, things like that are important to us. And it's, there's so much to American culture. And I think a part of American culture is bringing in people from other cultures, and the good parts of their cultures, such as tacos.
Mhm,
That's the
mhm.
example that everyone goes to, and assimilating those into our cultures and part of America.
Okay, so there's a debate that's ongoing, and this might be more of a right wing thing than a left wing thing. So I'm not sure it's happening in your circles, but the debate is America like a propositional nation or a heritage nation, right? And the stakes of this are somewhat high because if America is most countries are founded on an ethnicity. If you look at like the Declaration of Independence of Ireland, it says we, the Irish people, are separate than the English people, right? If you look at Japan, it's clearly founded on an ethnicity. I do not have that view. I think America was founded on a philosophy, a moral proposition, an American creed, if you will, not a an ethnicity.
Yeah.
But the problem I have is when I talk to people on the left, they don't seem to have any warmth or familiarity or desire to maintain the American creed. They kind of view it as an outdated, silly thing, and they focus more on, kind of as you just did, on the politics of the day. And I don't I query whether that's sustainable. Like, if we're not an ethnicity and we're a nation that's founded on a philosophy, and that philosophy is fading, it stands to reason it's going to be replaced by something else. And I think a lot of the reason why people on the right have gotten so wary of the left, whether they know it or not, is that it's become apparent that the left does want to replace the American philosophy with something else. And it certainly seems, we can talk about what that something else might be, but that seems to be rather obvious, and certainly, and again, I'm not trying to be offensive, but it seems to be reflected in your statements, where you don't view preserving an American philosophy or kind of preserving an American viewpoint as a concern.
Well, I guess it really depends on what you mean by that, because, like, in my view, countries change. Period. Like you're just gonna change, regardless if that change comes from the outside or if it comes from the inside. We change. Like we're not the same we were in the 1800s, and it's not because of migrants. It's just because of the whole host. So if you are asking me, do I care about keeping America exactly how it is today? Of course I don't. If you're asking me, do I care about preserving like big aspects of America that we could, then yes, I do. I just don't think that migrants coming in to this country risk of that. And so far, the things that you've given me as an example is people that are already here, that were already here, that they're not migrants, splitting their town, not necessarily doing anything problematic with that split, and England legalizing cousin marriage when it turns out that they actually were. It's always been.
No, no. What I'm trying to get at is whether or not what you think America is, and what we would need to do to preserve it as a nation. And I have, it seems to me like, maybe I'll pose the question then, like, if America is not an ethnically based nation, what do you think America is? What is America based on? Like, what does
Well,
it mean to be an American?
you, what it means to be American, you come to this country, you follow its laws, and you um
That's it.
like I do you have an answer to that?
Yes,
What is it?
an American citizen who believes in the American philosophy,
What is the American philosophy?
natural law.
Natural law. So somebody who comes in here and believes in something other than natural law, somebody who has my beliefs, because I don't just believe in natural law, obviously, because I
Mhm.
believe in things like welfare. They are not worthy of being American citizens.
No, this is, I mean, I did a huge debate on this. I think the left has abandoned America's moral proposition, and that's a big part of the reason why I left the left. That was my leaving the left story, is that the left has abandoned the philosophy that America is based on, and instead appears to be attempting to replace it with a kind of hollow legalism paired with, I don't know, some kind of pseudo Marxist critical theory. So in some cases, overt socialism, some cases, overt communism. But there seems to be a totally different philosophy coming from the left that is distinctly un-American. And yeah, that does concern me, because if you believe, as I do, that America is a propositional nation, then if the proposition is forgotten, there's no America left.
But for you, the proposition is that they have to believe in natural law. But which, in my understanding, is that the government is only here to protect our rights, and that's all the government should do.
Sorry, just I think this is just to make this as clear as I can. So when America was founded, we wrote two documents. We wrote the Constitution and we wrote the Declaration of Independence. And the Constitution is a legal document. This one was a moral document. The Constitution is what are our laws. The Declaration of Independence said, why do we deserve to be a separate nation from England? Right. And what did we say? We talked about the laws of nature and nature's God, that's natural law. And then we said, we hold these truths to be self evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. So here's three natural rights. I would add property as a big four. And that to
Wait, you
secure
can't.
these
Hold on. If you're
rights
using this document, then you add property, can't
among these,
you? Okay.
it's not an exclusive list.
So can I add what I want then?
That to secure, well, it would depend if it was a natural law or not.
Okay.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. So to secure these rights, we instituted our government. That's what we did. We instituted the American government to secure our natural rights. It's literally what the country was founded on.
What is a
Now,
natural right then?
a natural right.
Yes.
A natural right is, there's different ways that you could frame these. Do you have? I assume you're not. Um, you don't believe in God. You're an atheist of some stripe. Would that be
Um,
right?
my religion is I'm more agnostic. I do pray to God when I like I
Okay. So
I don't really know.
let me throw two alternative conceptions of natural law at you, and you can take whichever one sticks. What our founders would have said is that we were created in the image of God, and as a result, there are certain traits that are that are natural to humans. We want to have liberty. We don't want to die. We don't want to be in pain. Life, liberty. We want to be able to pursue happiness. We want to be able to take ownership of things and develop our property. These are like core human universals. Now, you could also conceptualize them as like evolutionary norms, right? Which are cross-cultural human universals. But the idea is that that's what our founders believed the purpose of the government was to identify, and it's a hard process, we don't always know what they are, but to identify these principles of natural law and then create a government that fosters them and secures these rights. That's what we founded the country to do. Now, my concern is, this a very few people even know about this idea, despite it being right there in the Declaration of Independence. But two, as the left increasingly abandons this idea, they are increasingly susceptible to other very, very bad ideas like socialism and communism and critical theory and all these kind of like endlessly derivative, subjective viewpoints that seem distinctly un-American to me. And I think that is a challenge. And on the right, I'm not saying they don't struggle with this. I just think they have less of that problem at this point.
Okay. So would you said something that I found kind of interesting, and that is that like the founders recognize that we are people, we are men that don't want, and one of the things he says is don't want to die, right?
Mhm.
Wouldn't welfare fall into natural law then? Like food stamps, gotta have food to live. So
You could,
the
you,
government can argue that within its purview to offer.
you could make the argument. I
Do you
mean,
think that that's a convincing argument?
no, not particularly, but
Why?
because the goals of natural law are in tension with each other. Like the more security you provide, the less liberty you provide, typically, for example, right? So, one of the things about our modern state is that it is maximally intrusive and as a result has enormous taxing powers and enormous spending powers. So, we have a lot less liberty than we should have. I think that I'm not opposed to people being benefited or or people having a better life. I am opposed to the idea that the way we're doing it is a good way to maximize our natural rights overall. What it seems like we're doing is that we're maximizing safety at the expense of the others.
Okay, but I don't think that you answered my question. Why is that not a convincing argument that welfare falls into the purview of natural law? If a part of natural law is that we want the government to help men like pursue the desire to not die, um, welfare seems to me like it would be well within that purview.
Yeah.
Um,
The
yeah,
I am not disagreeing with you that, like, providing welfare would help some people maximize the natural right of life,
yeah,
right? Like, that would be helpful for them. The problem is it creates real drain on liberty and pursuit of happiness for other people. So, if you're trying to create a policy where you maximize natural rights, what you're trying to do is maximize all of them, not just some of them. One of the benefits of programs that are based on charity rather than based on entitlement is that when people are actually giving in their communities, to go back to my example of, like, giving in Brooklyn rather than giving in Guatemala, for my college years, they benefit too because they get to live in a community that's getting better because of their efforts. And that sort of enlightened self-interest is actually a good thing. You give people freedom, you give people the opportunities to do the right thing, and then they do it. I don't think that the government has to do all these things, and I don't think that just because there's a problem that we need the government to solve it. um, I'm going to do some super chats if you, because it sounds like looks like you're looking something up. So just to give a
no, you're
second.
fine. I was replying to a message, but go ahead and do your super
Yeah.
chats. Make your money.
Yeah, you got to get the greasers greasing. So grassroots hegemon with the big 20. Thanks. I'm Puerto Rican. I'm happy we bought in Criolla, less FOMD FOMD that we also brought in total abandonment of property rights. Lol. My grandfather told me once, if you go to Santoris, expect to steal your car back repeatedly. Yeah, I mean, this is a perennial issue, right? Is that there is a vision of a propertyless society, and I think it's based on some kind of, like, uh, utilitarian nonsense that is a very bad idea. Thank you, grassroots. Unironic, Satanism may be less evil than communism. Yeah, unironically. JC20, Migration Policy Institute estimated nearly 400,000 CCP immigrants have illegally crossed the border. So, yes, there are communists coming over. Yeah, and if you watch the birthright citizenship debate, you'll know that there's a wave of Chinese nationals who are going to have citizenship for their kids, who are turning 18 in the next few years. JC again, J6 again. Thanks so much, buddy. $10. I appreciate that. Do you have any issue of taking from working class families who don't qualify for welfare and giving it to the illegals? Are you so naive to think this wouldn't cause discord? I think that's for you.
Do I have any issue of taking working class family to qualify for? I mean, if they're working class, I'm assuming. Probably, yeah. I don't want poor people. I think that our tax system is up in a way to where poor people don't pay taxes. And like upper middle class and wealthy people pay most.
But working class people pay taxes.
Well, define working class. Like, where are we talking? Are we talking about like me?
I have no idea what your income streams are
I
like.
I
I don't
make
know what that means.
60,000.
So you pay tax.
Yeah, I pay taxes, but I'm not poor.
Yeah, but he didn't say poor. He said working class. So,
Oh,
like,
well
yeah,
then, yeah.
I
People like
imagine
me.
that's like blue collar, like, like
But somebody making my salary, if
bag.
they had kids, they wouldn't be paying taxes.
Well, I mean, I can't do the math in my head on that, but I mean, I think that the question he's really asking is more like, do you recognize that people who are struggling to get by might find it annoying or problematic or discordant that money's being taken from them and distributed to people who are here, who they don't think should be.
Yeah, sure, but I also wouldn't be in favor of like people who are struggling by to have taxes. I'd probably want to give to them. Like that would be what my system would do.
What's your system?
I
would,
would
if you're struggling to get by, then you'll probably get welfare from my system.
So wait, so you would expand welfare so that people who are in like working class blue collar situations are getting welfare?
Probably, if they're struggling to get by, yeah.
Well, life's a struggle, man. We all struggle. I don't know. Like,
But
like, I guess I'm
there's always
unclear.
going to be struggles, sure, but like
What
if
would
you're
you?
struggling to get by, that's a whole different thing.
I guess I'm trying to figure out. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck on this super chat, so good for you, buddy. But I guess I'm trying to figure out what is your system? Like you said, in my system, like what is the worldview that you're promoting?
Oh, I really like the tax system we have.
I
I would prefer if people who are wealthier was not getting the tax cuts I've seen under the Bush and Trump administration. I want the capital gains taxes raised at least way to match income taxes. It doesn't make any sense to me. Like capital gain, have tax benefits like people who are working. And then I would see where we are from there. I would probably find ways, um, honestly, look like cutting area, maybe DHS it to be able to fund a more robust welfare system that takes care of these working class people who qualify for welfare. Because I do think that levels at which people start qualifying for welfare is kind of ridiculous. There are plenty of people who probably should be on welfare that can't get it.
Okay, let's circle back. Let's circle back to that just so I finish these up. There's some interesting stuff in there. Let me make sure I didn't skip anybody. World Radio 332, thanks for the 10, buddy. Plus, when you get large enough groups, they become enclaves. They don't talk or report to LEO. Liberal Cluck, was that a tacit admission you'd prefer to import third world issues here?
I don't
than
think
we
that
are
we'd
in?
be reporting. I don't think we're importing. I think that, especially in second and third generation.
and to like third world people bring issues. America,
Great country. We're a big country, wealthy country. We can fucking take it. Like I don't
But why would we?
because we
Like
can.
like you're saying we can take it, but
because
why would we
Because
take it?
we're helping to happy. We're helping to make people better.
But why? I guess my question is, why would we be prioritizing? It seems like you're giving equal weight to the benefit to non-Americans and the benefit to Americans. Like you're saying, Americans can take it, and then non-Americans would benefit.
Well, I'm saying America can take it.
Well, but
But
America is full of Americans who would be the ones taking it, right?
so on an individual level, if migrants are causing like serious problems to an individual, probably something done about that. For example, Gibbs tells the story about his cows getting by migrants. That's an issue. Maybe we can find ways to solve things like that.
So what do you mean America can take it?
Like if we import a bunch of third world, we can take care of them. Like we have the wealth for that. We have the productivity to take care of these people until they are able to take care of themselves.
So,
And we also have the moral backbone. We have the moral fortitude to be able to handle whatever problematic cultural aspects that they bring with them.
okay, and then we we can take it, and then why? Why would we do that instead of being more selective?
Because I value the lives in which these people can build in America compared to where they.
Okay, so we should take it because it would benefit non-Americans who could then be here. Okay, I mean, I think it's clear that's your position. I appreciate your clarity on it. I think that that's a this is the sentiment that got Trump elected, right? Like this is the obvious problem being, of course, that we don't have any such moral obligation, and we don't need to do that. And it seems so odd that we wouldn't even try. Like I have no problem with immigration per se, but I think immigration should be focused not on benefiting non-Americans, but on benefiting Americans.
Do you
Like
think that? I think that
We should do immigration to benefit us,
yeah,
not to benefit the world.
I think immigration does benefit us, even for immigration. But that doesn't mean that I don't recognize the problems that immigration can also come. It's not like a zero sum. Oh, these people are only going to become bring problems. Even the poor migrants that come in here that bring these third world issues, they're probably working. They're probably provide contributing to society in some way or another. So it's not like they're just bringing problems.
Yeah. So, but I get
So
this
so
is
so
the
even those benefit us.
But this is the thing, like my very minor suggestion about immigration was that we vet people so that we can ensure that they are, or not ensure, because we will never be able to ensure. We vet people in order to decrease the frequency in which we're getting people who aren't really into American values and American culture, decrease the frequency that we get people who are net negatives, increase the frequency that we get people who are interested in assimilating, and increase the frequency we get people who want to contribute meaningfully. So, like, I don't see, like, that's only a problem if you are. I actually, why is that a problem? I guess I'm not even sure why
Well,
you
for
find that to be
one,
a
when you
problem.
talk about American values, there's probably 300 million different ideas what American values are. Um, what it sounds like to me is that you want to only bring people in with your political ideology, based around this idea of natural law that you have decided what it is. And then when I try to interpret natural law based off of the words that you gave me, it doesn't work, even though it logically follows. It sounds to me like you just want to bring in people of a certain political persuasion, whereas I don't care about any of that.
Yeah. So what I care about is that, and going back to the beginning of the conversation, America was founded on a particular philosophy. That philosophy needs to endure, because if it doesn't, then we do not have anything that unites Americans. That's what America is. It's literally what we have, right?
I I disagree.
Like Japan's easy. You know who the Japanese people are. It's very clear who's Japanese. And by the way, you could spend 30 years living there, learning the language, learning the culture, immigrating, doing everything right, and you would never be Japanese, because it's an ethnic identity. And we all know that's what it is. America, at least to my estimation, is not that. We're a philosophic identity. So I'm trying to preserve the philosophic identity, because that's what I believe America is. On your view of America, I don't think America is anything at all. I don't think there's anything, like, I don't think there's anything there. Like, it seems like all you're saying America is people who live here, and I guess, like, have to follow the laws because they'll go to jail if they don't. I don't. There's nothing in your vision. I don't seem to. There's nothing. I don't
You
think
know
there's
what?
anything America left on your vision.
Well,
As you
kind of,
understand it.
because America, like I can put out a whole bunch of things I want Americans to be. Like I want Americans to value freedom of religion. But one of the beautiful things about America is that we have the right to not value freedom of religion, even though it's like enshrined in our Constitution. We don't have to like it. So what is America if we're a bunch of people to free to believe whatever we want? I think that your worldview of America is not only wrong, it's dead. You're the idea that America is just that's based around natural laws and that every American is that coalesces around that is it's not reality of what American and that when we
So
see
what?
things
So what is America?
America is a place where people can be free, believe many different things. And as
So
long as they're not breaking the law, we allow it.
how would you preserve that without a philosophy? Because our Constitution is infinitely malleable.
It is.
It can be infinitely changed.
I,
So
the way we preserve that is because this idea of freedom is so contagious to people that when they come here, if they don't end up buying into it, their children do. And if their children don't, their children's children do.
so you're saying actually there is an American philosophy, And freedom, or I would use the word liberty, which is the one of the Declaration of Independence, is important to the American philosophy.
Yeah, but this freedom has to include a lot of things that you're not okay with.
What what exactly would I
You
what
have to have the freedom to believe in communism.
I think American citizens do have the freedom to believe in communism.
Okay, but you don't want to bring people into America that believe in communism.
Of course not.
Yeah. So like like the idea of we have the freedom to believe in communism, but you're not taking that ideal of freedom of liberty and extending that want to come here.
Of course not.
Okay, well then there you go. That's
Because liberty only, in order to maximize liberty, you have to have a shared value system. If you don't have a shared value system, you can't maximize liberty. Because if you give people lots of freedom and they don't share a value system, they're going to misuse the freedom.
don't
And
we
as a
already
result, you
don't
have to
share a
take it away
value
from
system.
them. Yes, that's the problem with the modern left. You are correct.
No, like everyone already doesn't share a value system.
We there are differences of opinion, but I think that there are, if you looked at American history, the big tent poles and natural law, we're not talking about minor things like, do you want chocolate or vanilla ice cream? We're talking about, like, should we try to maximize life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for our citizens? These are big tent poles. And I think that, to your point, you just earlier said that this idea of freedom is so contagious and so pervasive that it has endured. I think these are good and enduring ideas. My problem is that when I look at what the left has become, they are, as you've taken the position in this conversation, overtly hostile to these norms. And because they're overtly hostile to these norms, it appears to me that they're attempting to replace them with different philosophies and different values. And this is why we see the rise of socialism again. This is why we see the rise of communism on the left now, because these things are antithetical to American values, but they are on the rise because there is an attempt to replace the philosophy. And I do,
Wait, is
that
it
does
possible
strike
that
me as a
they're on
problem.
the rise because they make for people living happier lives?
No.
No?
Show me the wonderful communist country.
I'm not talking about communism.
Well,
There's all
I was.
there's all
I
well,
was.
okay, I don't think communism has any risk of actually
That was
gaining
your
power in America.
example about the thing I would screen out
The thing
communists.
you would screen out communism. I wouldn't screen out communism because I don't think it's at any risk of gaining any political traction.
No,
But when we talk
no,
about
no, no,
something
no,
like
no, 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 no,
welfare,
no, no,
when we
no,
talk
no,
about
no,
something
no,
like
no, 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 no,
welfare,
no, 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 no. Show me the communist nation that's
I
doing
don't
so
believe in
well.
communism, Ryan. I
Okay,
told you
then
that.
why would we import communists who do believe in communism
Because
on
they're
purpose?
they're not going to gain power in America, and
Well,
their kids
why,
are going to be
what are why
red
would we
blooded, red, white, and blue,
why
bald eagle loving.
why take that chance? What's the point?
Because they
Why not just
provide other
import? Why
benefits. If
not bring
they're
in other people who aren't communists?
We can bring in both.
Why?
Why not? There's that you don't have a
Because
good
they're
reason not
fucking
to.
communists.
Because if they're coming from especially if they're coming from a place that's like that they're not able if they're coming from a place where they are where it's like poor conditions, then that communist can come here and work and provide a better life for themselves. That's why. Like, but we're looping because I've already said this. I value that. You don't.
I,
That's where our values differ.
the problem is that you seem to think that America is infinitely durable and that it would never be damaged by its ideals and its philosophies eroding. And I don't understand why you think
I
that.
don't your specific ideals. I don't think that
Not
those
my
specific
specific ideals, they're
the,
from the
the ones
Declaration of
yeah the ones from the
Independence.
Declaration of Independence. I don't think that those ideals eroding is actually necessarily going to the fabric of America because I believe that the ideals and the way that you interpret them is already eroded. It's
Okay.
gone.
So for the record, this is why I don't think the left can ever can be trusted to retain power at this point. But the like so your point is we don't need to worry about the ideals being eroded because we've already successfully eroded them.
It wasn't by immigration. It was
Partially,
by
it was
American
partially
people.
by
It
immigration.
was by American people wanting something different.
No, it was primarily by the, Woodrow Wilson, John Dewey era the progressive system, which took over the American education system and spawned the modern left. That's primarily how it happened. I agree that's not solely immigration, but but as it touches on the immigration debate, your point seems to be that you think that I should just admit defeat and say that, yeah, the ideals of America that I believe in are dead, so I shouldn't bother trying to preserve them. Is-
My point is that immigration isn't what's destroying these ideals. Your ideals, the American people have decided that your ideals are for them.
no, not all the American people.
Yeah, there's
Just the majority of the Democratic Party.
and
No,
the Republicans.
no.
There's a lot of Republicans that believe in camps. No,
Sure.
a lot of them like the ACA.
Okay.
Those things are antithetical to your ideals. That you
No,
think
they-
that
they-
you think
they-
America
I don't
was
think
founded
you
on.
understand the ideals particularly well, to be totally candid with you.
Maybe I don't.
But also, I'm not talking about, like, I mean, we can go line by line, policy by policy, but, for example, there was a really interesting exchange that I thought was illuminating in the Senate. It got washed out because the news cycle is so fast. But Tim Kaine was before the Senate, and he said that he was concerned that people were talking about our rights coming from our creator, because that's something you'd see in a theocracy. That's Islamism. That's like the Quran. And he was very concerned about this idea. And then Senator Ted Cruz stood up and said, "Well, that's a direct quote from the Declaration of Independence, that our rights come from our creator." So I do think that there is a vast gulf between the left and the right on this issue, where the right does want to preserve natural rights, does want to preserve the American philosophy. They don't do it perfectly, and they have a lot of bad ideas, and there's tons of people there who I disagree with and will happily join you in fighting. But on the left, as you've expressed it, and I think you've expressed it eloquently, that there is actual overt hostility to the ideals, either because they're dead and gone or because they want to defeat them.
Well, no, I think
So-
that your ideals, the reason why that I see hostility, the ideas in which the way you interpret them, because I was able to interpret those ideas in a way that actually fits pretty well within my worldview, but you denied that. But the ideas in which the way you interpret them, I think would make for more people have more suffering in America.
Yeah.
I think that if we got rid of like welfare, which is against your ideals, there would be more suffering in America.
So a few things. One, um, I don't know how deep I want to go on this. Okay. If we looked at like a logical expression or a mathematical expression,
Huh?
right? Like 2 + 2 is 4. P does not equal not P, like any of these things, right?
Okay.
Of course, you could look at it and say, actually, I think 2 + 2 is 5, or actually, I think P equals not P. Like you can say something that is wrong, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the fact that when I say that when we talk about natural law, we're talking about an objective moral system. It stands to reason that in an objective moral system, that people will be wrong about it from time to time. Like if there is an objective morality, then some people are going to be right and some people are going to be wrong. So the fact that you can look at it and say something different than I would say, okay, sure, like that's fine. Like I'm not saying that
You're basically saying my interpretation is wrong.
I am saying yours.
You're saying that natural law is an objective thing, like 2 + 2 = 4, and that I'm getting the math wrong.
Yes.
Okay, so
And I'm not, by the way, I'm not like making this up. This is like, if you look at the philosophy of the time, like you look at like, Locke, you look at Thomas Reid, you look at Scottish common sense moral realism. That's what they believed that they were talking about. They were talking about an objective moral system, and that because there was an objective moral out there, what we as flawed humans try to do is get as close to it as possible. And in so doing, you could be more right or more wrong based off of the way that you handled it.
Okay, so we're
Endowed
endowed by the Creator with unalienable rights that among
Mm.
these life, liberty, and happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. I do not understand how I am objectively wrong in saying that welfare, that SNAP, that universal health care is important for helping men have the right of life.
Because you're not seeking to balance liberty in pursuit of happiness or property rights.
So you would give up the rights of life for the other two. Property rights isn't even on here.
No.
Like,
Well, it A, among them. B, it's, all
Okay,
over the
so
reins of
among them,
John
why
Locke.
can't I come up
C,
with like you have a
yeah,
right to food?
you can, you're just wrong.
But why are you right when you say property and I'm wrong when I say food?
Well, first of all, because my view is grounded in what the text actually means and what these people said and thought. So, for example, um, how on earth could you have a natural right to food? Like, if you were, like, how is it that you could be sitting like alone on a mountain and with a natural right to food? The world doesn't owe you food. The food doesn't magically appear. Like, how is it that our creator has bestowed upon us the right to food? It doesn't even follow from the text. But beyond that, if like natural law is conceptualized as a moral order that is about human universals. It's about the things that are intrinsic to us as people. Now, food is a very specific thing. I think you do have a right to life, but then you need to balance that against other rights, liberty, pursuit of happiness. And if you have a right to food, that means that I have the power to take that food away from, I being the government, to take that power away from people, other people, and give it to you. So you're no longer maximizing all of the natural rights. What you're doing is prioritizing one at the expense of others.
Yeah, I understand that, and I believe that that balance is always there. Do you think that like natural law that the founding fathers wanted like exorbitant people having exorbitant wealth while others starve?
I don't think, I don't think that that was a huge concern at the founding. They didn't do welfare at all. In fact, at the founding, one of the things, like in many states, if you were a ward of the state, they could deny you immigration. Because at the founding, there was no national immigration policy, it was state by state. So, for example, if you went to a state and it looked like you were going to be a drain on state resources, they would kick you out of the state.
So Jefferson, no, I'm getting this from AI because I've never really looked into like the idea of
Yeah.
welfare and what the founding fathers said. But apparently Jefferson expressed in 1809, letter to James Fishbeck, that he considered a duty for everyone to allocate a portion of their income for charitable purposes for its use.
Yes, I think and that's exactly right. Think about the difference between what he just said.
Are you going to say because he's saying that everyone has to donate to charities?
He's saying that he believes he has a moral duty. He has an obligation to make the world better and to give charitably. The difference, it's not a small
But no,
difference.
he said he didn't say he. He said everyone.
Sure, yeah, that we have a moral obligation to our communities, to the people around us, to make life better. The difference between charitable giving and having your money taken and used by the government for its purposes is pretty serious.
So
It's a
what
very
do we
big
do?
difference.
What do we do if the charitable givings isn't enough to provide?
What do you mean? What do we do?
Do we just let people starve? Is that what Jefferson would have wanted?
I mean, if the charitable givings weren't enough, then he probably would have given more. He was a charitable guy.
Okay,
But the
now
goal,
he's out of money.
but see,
What
what's
happens?
what's happened now, and I think that this shift is indicative. Your goal is no longer to maximize natural rights. Your goal is to prevent any starvation.
To maximize life, because you
Yeah.
starve, you die.
At the expense of the other ones.
Sure.
Because if you're right, so you're no longer seeking to maximize natural rights writ large. You're prioritizing the one that you prefer,
And I would
which
say you're
because
prioritizing the ones you prefer by saying the opposite.
no, I'm saying that if you allow people to keep more of their money, if you promote a moral people who, like Jefferson, would believe they had a duty to make the world around them better, and you give people moral instruction and then the freedom to do good things, that's what we're attempting to do. We're trying to create a moral populace who will use their ordered liberty for useful ends. The flip side, that is very, very different than saying that, because all government is essentially at the butt of a gun, that we are going to compel people against their will to take money that we are going to use for various programs that are increasingly, as we've seen in recent days, dubious in terms of their benefits, their efficiency, they can be fraudulent, but worse than even like the fraud and the waste and all these other problems. The thing that really bothers me about it is that it's an entitlement, and nobody values an entitlement. When you give if you give money within your community to somebody who needs it, they know you gave it to them, and there's a social obligation there. They're going to try to live up to that. Nobody gives a shit if they're taking money from the government that they shouldn't have. And that's why we had, for example, massive COVID fraud, because anybody who can try to get money from the government does. They don't view it as a moral thing. They view it as a game.
Okay, so first thing that I would say to that is that your system, one where we have so much charitable giving, that it would be enough. It doesn't work.
Why not?
Because people don't give like that.
Okay, so they do other things.
Like what?
Well, like for example, before we had our current medical system, we had the lodge system where people banded, in largely working class people banded together. They formed, they formed fraternal orders. The fraternal orders would then provide medical care for people in the community, right? We had churches.
And
Churches
do you think that
churches
system is better
provided
than what we have now?
almost anything is better than the system we have now.
I fundamentally disagree. I think that larger proportion of the population is being provided for in ways that would be unimaginable in the past because of our government.
No, what's happening now is that we've created a false barrier to economic activity within the medical sector because nobody knows what they're paying for anything. So it's all imaginary money that's being shoved out to the insurance companies. And as a result, we don't even have right now, our system doesn't even have the full benefits of capitalism or the benefits of socialism. Even what we have, like our university system, is the same way. What we have is an amalgamation of many of the worst traits of both. In some ways it works. Like if you have a lot of money, you can get the best care in the world in America, and our R&D and our pharmaceuticals are the best because we have the most profit here. But what we've done is that we've taken away the agency from the people, and we've now tied them into these kind of like this insurance driven set plan that is essentially a market intervention. Like it didn't come to be naturally. Our
Well,
system
our system of insurance did come to be naturally.
It did not come to be naturally.
It started with a people banding together in I think it was banding together to pool their money just in case somebody got sick, and then companies discovered that they could make a profit off of that model, and they started offering workplaces healthcare. And they started offering people healthcare, but they were only offering healthy people healthcare because you can't get rich off of sick people giving sick people healthcare. That's like the broad strokes of it.
Yeah, I mean that is remarkably inaccurate. I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news, but The way that our modern healthcare system developed, because the teachers banding together, that sounds like the lodge system I was talking about. But the way the modern healthcare system was created was that FDR instituted wage ceilings as a wartime measure to combat inflation and other economic ills during the war. So companies couldn't offer increased salaries beyond certain figures. So what the companies did to get around the that economic intervention in the market is that they started offering health insurance as a perk because they couldn't offer you more salary. Then the IRS ruled that the health insurance that they were offering as a perk was tax deductible, was not taxable income. And once the IRS ruled that, then it became a fixture of American life that you get your health insurance from a company. But this was not a thing that happened on its own. It happened because the government intervened in the market, and as a result of that intervention, the economy warped around the intervention, and that created the modern insurance system.
Okay. Um.
Does it give you any pause that you were completely wrong about that?
No, because I looked that up years ago, years and years ago. The way in which I engage in information now is way different than what I used to. So I'm not that worried that like I missed the whole what is it? The Stabilization Act of 1942. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, I forgot the name of it, but yeah, that sounds
To
right.
fight inflation, government froze
Mhm.
wages. Employers couldn't offer raises to attract workers. They began offering fringe benefits like health insurance instead.
Yeah, that
So,
sounds
so
right.
where did like insurance companies come from?
Well, now that they're offering the insurance, there's a market for insurance. And now I think insurance companies existed prior to that, but now that create the modern insurance market. Now everybody in the country was getting insurance through their employers as that system spread, and that turned into our modern healthcare system because there was a burgeoning market for insurance, which previously people didn't tend to have. By the way, a lot of people, the idea instead of having insurance, you went to a doctor, right? But the system was just entirely different. Um, but we are pretty far afield from an immigration conversation.
Yeah, we
I
are.
Yeah, I think ultimately though, um, if we take a step back, right? And I'm not trying to be harsh, but I actually feel like you're a good representation of the belief systems and values on the left. Like, you don't strike me as being like super far left. I think you strike me as kind of, maybe you could describe
I
yourself.
consider myself a progressive. I think I'm further left than you're getting credit for.
Okay, so you're progressive. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't find your ideas to be like unrepresentative. I think I know some leftists who are more centristy than you, and I know more some who are further left than you. But like the idea that you're so comfortable saying that like this American philosophy is dead and gone, like let's look at it from the other view. If there's a subset of Americans who don't believe that, who think that these are ideals worth fighting for, how do we reconcile with a political party that believes these ideals are dead and would like to move past them?
Kyle? I mean, I guess you would try to get and keep political power.
Sounds
That's
about right.
the only thing you can do. I mean,
Well,
unless you want to be violent about it, but I don't think that's the thing he wants to do.
no, but I think your prescription is right, and I think that that's actually kind of the problem, right? Like again, I've talked about the benefits of a shared moral system. When you have a shared moral system, maybe I favor X policy, right? Like I think we should have less taxes and less welfare, and you favor more taxes and more welfare. But we share a moral system by and large. So when you win, it's not like an existential threat. It's just the policies are going to be different.
Well,
We're
it is kind of an existential threat to you because the more I went, the less your idea of what America is supposed to be exists.
Yeah, because we don't share a moral system. But
Oh, okay.
if we did share a moral system, then it's easier to lose elections. The stakes are lower, right? You're like, okay, like there's real, like let's look at Christianity, right? there's real differences within Christianity. Like Orthodoxy, Catholics, Protestants, they do not actually believe the same things about a lot of stuff. But there's enough of a shared value system there that they have kind of like a mutual understanding of what the outer perimeters
Yeah.
are by and large.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my concern, is that it feels like there isn't a shared moral system anymore. And I don't know how you can keep a liberal democracy without a shared moral system. I think you need that. It's a precondition.
What is your prescription of that?
Well, my prescription was that I started this channel and I'm trying to promote natural law and make people increasingly aware of what this is. Because I agree with you, by the way. Like, this is one of the things I get all the time. My more right leaning fans would say, oh, you're all for keeping the communists out of the country, but how come you're not in favor of denaturalizing American citizens who are communists and deporting them as well? And it's because I also believe in the Constitution. I also believe that we owe the citizens the rights they have, including the right to have really fucking bad opinions. And like, I'm my solution, because of my classic liberal principles, means that I have to win in the marketplace of ideals, because I don't support using government force to enforce my ideals. But immigration is the interesting case where it's optional. We don't have to let people in. So that's the one instance where government intervention could actually be helpful, and it seems like it would be at least from my perspective, an easy way to at least slow the degradation of the American philosophy.
Or the American philosophy as used.
And as our
No, I mean,
founding
I understand your perspective. I just, like I said, I think that the way that you see what America should be, I don't think that most Americans would agree. And I think that we see that when things like the ACA gets taken away and it becomes like a uproar. And it's not even the ACA getting taken away; it was enhanced ACA subsidies getting taken away that caused an uproar in the American people. The mass deportation, and the way that that's been happening, which we didn't get to today, and I would really like to, not tonight because I need to go to work tomorrow morning.
Mhm.
But I would really like to get back with you on those cases.
Yeah,
Um,
if you're running out of steam, that's totally fine. We can pick this up another time. Always happy to have you on.
Yeah.
I do think, though, just to leave you with this parting thought, maybe then, and then I'll give you a second to say whatever you want to say and promote your stuff. Um, I'm sensing, in philosophic terms, it's called nominalism from you, which is like the idea that whatever, like in your mind, whatever natural law is, whatever moral principles I'm prescribing, it's just a belief. It's my belief. Maybe there's other people who believe the same things like me. And because we have this belief, we subjectively believe it. Sure. Right. Um, I'm not a nominalist. I don't think I'm describing something that a bunch of people subjectively believe and it's a creation of their mind. I think I'm describing reality. Like, there's a truth about what it means to be human in this universe, and that's what natural law is. So there's a real divergence of worldview there. Like, it's not. I'm not describing something subjective and personal. I'm describing something that is objective and discoverable that I'm trying to discover.
Yeah, you're describing the interpretation of the Declaration of Independence that you have based off of the other works and words that the founding fathers have said, right? And created in their lifetime, right?
Well, let me put it this way. I think that there is something out there which is natural law. And I agree with you that humans use words to describe their ideas and we have to track those ideas. But when I'm using the term, I'm referring to something out there. Like, I'm referring, like, think of it like a platonic form. Like, there is a aspect of reality to which I am referring, and is not dependent on us. We can discover it, but it is what it is.
Okay, that
Right.
that actually kind of opens up some other thing, more under, because like I thought you were interpreting natural laws solely on the Declaration of Independence, and
the founding fathers, but like if a god came down to you today, right now, and was like, actually, there is a thing that's natural law, and this is what it is. They were close, but they had this, that, and the other thing wrong. You would just like you would be like, oh, okay, that's
Yeah.
what it is.
Of course,
Okay.
yeah. Like, so I'm not a Christian. I'm a deist, which is basically like I believe in God, but I don't think I have sufficient reason to believe in any particular claim of revelation or miracle, which means I can't rely on Scripture for
Okay.
guidance. But yeah, like even as a deist, like that just means that means I believe in God, and then I'm agnostic beyond that point.
Just take their
Like,
religious like if you had a way
Yeah.
to objectively know what natural law was and it was completely opposite of what the founding fathers was trying to say, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's what it is.
Then I don't think that's true, but then
But yeah.
I'd have to be like, yeah, it turns out they were wrong.
How close do you think the founding fathers were? 1 to
Real
10.
close. I think they were the closest we've they were in many ways the culmination of history, and they got the closest that any country's ever gotten in terms of articulating the doctrine. But then on the flip side, it took them what, like 100 years to abolish slavery. So
Yeah.
it's like, and slavery is obviously abhorrent on natural law. So just getting the target right doesn't mean that you figured everything out, right? Like it takes even saying like we want to promote natural law is kind of like a quest that we are embarking on together. It's our like we to improve and to find better ways to do it.
Okay, so you think they got most of it right. What in the natural world have you seen that makes you think they got it mostly right?
Do you spend time with kids?
I do.
Yeah. So I taught elementary school for a long time, and I have 2 kids, so I spent a lot of time with young children. And if you look at young children's value systems, it maps on almost perfectly. Like, what do they want? They want the freedom to pursue their interests. They want to be able to play. They want to be able to do their thing. They want to be able to make choices, but they want to be safe while they're doing it. They don't want you to smother them. They don't want you to they don't want you to keep them so tight that they can't explore the world around them, but they want a balance between those things. They're very into property rights. They're very into what's theirs and what's their sisters. And like I think that like life, liberty, pursuit of happiness with property mixed in with pursuit of happiness, let's say, I think you observe those drives within children the second they're able to move and start articulating themselves.
I think
It's
that it also,
instant.
if one child was like starving and the other child had an abundance of food, the child that's starving would actually expect some of that food to come their way too.
Well, they would expect the parent to do that.
Yeah, parent, government.
No,
But anyways,
that is pretty different.
I do appreciate the conversation, Ryan. I do gotta get up early for work. Hit me up on Discord.
Yeah.
We could schedule something else next week. I'm probably available after Wed. I don't
Yeah.
know when I gotta return my girlfriend to her house.
Hey, man, always happy to have a conversation and always happy to explore ideas. So thanks for coming on. Appreciate you. Do you want to plug your stuff?
Yeah, Liberal Cluck. I'm really only interested want to fight with me. Date me, whatever it may be. Hit me up.
All right. Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Yep,
Have a
have a
good
good
one.
night.